Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this forum on understanding grief. My name is Farah and I will be your MC. Our next presenter, and I like where Mojdeh ended, is that beautiful people are not just made, because David is one of those beautiful people. They don't just happen. David is a 42-year-old born, raised in Perth, a dedicated father of 2 young boys and a professional in the workplace health and safety industry. Beyond his work, he is deeply committed to community service and to raising his sons with care, strength and compassion. In March last year, David lost his wife, Emma, to breast cancer. Today he shares his lived experience of grief, resilience, and navigating life as a husband and father after loss. Through his story, he hopes to offer an honest and heartfelt perspective on what it means to keep moving forward while carrying love and loss side by side. Please help me welcome David.
Good afternoon, everyone. So in putting together my sharing, I've sort of grouped the story I'll tell in sort of 3 broad areas. So firstly, what happened. So as Farah mentioned, Emma passed in March of 2025. So if we go back to March 2024, while we were at a doctor's office checking a blood test result for myself, we were almost walking out the door when Emma casually mentioned to the doctor that she was experiencing some discomfort in her right breast and just wanted to mention it. Emma was breastfeeding our 4-month-old son at that point and attributed that discomfort to a blocked milk duct. Nevertheless, our family doctor made a referral for an ultrasound, which Emma had a few days later. We were all basically thinking, it'll probably be nothing, it's good to check these things though. And the result of the ultrasound found an area of concern. And further testing led to a diagnosis nobody anticipated. So cancer in the breast and lymph nodes under the right arm. So over the next 12 months, Emma underwent chemotherapy and immunotherapy treatment for her cancer. That at first was very responsive. It was showing encouraging signs to making a recovery. There were some complications along the way, and the treatment did take a physical toll on Emma. A few months into treatment, there was the formation of a further tumour in the same breast, and seemingly resistant to that course of treatment that Emma was having. And this necessitated the decision to bring forward a planned mastectomy of the right breast and removal of the lymph nodes. In the months that followed surgery, Emma completed the planned course of chemotherapy and then began radiotherapy, which was completed in January 2025. It was around the same time that Emma notified her oncologist about some pain she was experiencing in her back. And through some testing, there was confirmation of the spread of cancer to the Emma's spine and liver. Emma's oncologist began a new treatment aimed at prolonging Emma's life for as long as possible. And Emma fought bravely until her body could no longer do so. And in the early hours of March, the 19th of March, 2025, Emma departed this physical world. So how did it impact my life? You can see it now. But when Emma was diagnosed, the thought that she wouldn't get better, it never really entered my mind. I mean, we live in Australia. We have access to some of the best treatments in the world. Of course, it wouldn't be easy on Emma's body or mind, but I was always of the belief that she would make it through this challenge and continue to be the wonderful mother she was to our 2 boys. And this phase of life would be something we look back on and marvel at what a magnificent job Emma did in beating cancer. For me, thank you. One of the biggest impacts of losing Emma has been the loss of a partner. Sorry. The loss of a partner that I consulted with constantly to try to make the best decisions possible. Whether that was in relatively simple day-to-day household decisions or significant ones, to how we raise our sons, Emma's wisdom and foresight was something that I realized after she was gone that I would not be able to replace. Sure, I mean, I'm able to discuss things with other family members, but there was something that I always found in consulting with Emma that led to so much clarity on, what the way forward should be. Another impact that I felt at the time and still continue to feel is, Emma physically not being here to see our sons grow and develop. And this is coupled with not being sure how my sons will process and how our sons, will process the loss of Emma as they get older and achieve significant milestones in their life. Even things like how to navigate Mother's Day activities when your son's school focuses on honouring mums. And that being said, credit must go to my eldest son Levi's school in how they sensitively discuss these matters and ultimately aim to keep Levi's happiness and well-being at the forefront of any decision making. And so the last category I've put this presentation into is how did my faith and community help me with the grieving process? So the offers of genuine support that my family and I have received since Emma's passing have been so amazing and comforting. I have been able to have many conversations with people, and these have allowed me to explore my grief as well as being reassured that I'm not alone on this journey. My boys are not alone, and we have a network of support around us at all times. In terms of the community around me, this includes family, and it would not be right if I did not give a special mention to Emma's parents, Kamran and Roya Kazemi. We have lived together for many years, even before Emma's illness, and the love and support they have provided and continue to provide my boys and I have been so much that words will never be able to express the amount of thanks that it deserves. I mentioned specifically the impact of the physical loss and any sadness that this has caused in my life because it is quickly coupled with my spiritual beliefs as a Baha'i, that Emma's soul has progressed from this world to the other worlds of God. And when I feel sad about something Emma has not seen due to not being here in person, I quickly remember that my beliefs teach me that and have taught me that Emma sees everything that is happening in mine and our boys' lives. She is just seeing it from her own vantage point. The teachings of the Baha'i faith remind us that death is not something to fear or be saddened by. And while I find myself at times wishing for Emma to still be here, I know that Emma's soul has progressed, and the journey that she had to take in this physical world happened for reasons beyond anyone's control or understanding, and therefore and should not be questioned. Instead of being saddened or ceasing to function, I'm aiming to do everything in honor of Emma and live with the mindset that she is with me and our boys every step of the way. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for that very honest and absolutely heartfelt sharing. We do have a tribute to Emma that we're just in the process of showing some photos with music. open the floor now for if anyone has any questions. There will be a roaming microphone going around, so please, if you have a question, raise your hand and Marijan will bring the microphone to you.
Thank you. This question is possibly addressed to Dr. Bassiri. In respect to people with diverse cultural backgrounds, I've had personally, professionally actually, dealing with people coming from other countries facing PTSD. In the Western culture, usually you encourage them to see a psychologist and talk about the issues that has caused you problem. A lot of times, their symptoms are having insomnia, body ache, and depression or anger, and they are referred to doctors for body ache or insomnia and other issues that are physical. And traditionally, they are not inclined to talk to psychologists or psychiatrists at times about the emotional impact of traumas that they had endured, whether it was due to war or displacement or at times personal violence that they had endured in their past lives. And there is a taboo about going to psychologists and talk about their griefs, or if there is suicide in the family, that's even, as you mentioned, worse to talk about it. Also, personally, I've had friends who had family loss and they haven't been able to deal with it. And they see it, I'm not saying the term waste of time, but they always express that if I want to go and talk about the past wounds, this will bring me back to the traumas that I had experienced before. What is the use of opening the wounds that is becoming better? What is the use of opening the scars that I have endured? Even for coming to this gathering today, I encouraged somebody to come with me, and that person said, well, I can't handle opening the wounds again. Let me be what I am. I can understand that what you discussed about the grief, and sometimes people say, well, it's my grief and I like to have this grief. I can understand that we all have episodes, even if it's an old grief. Memories come back, or when you're lonely, or beautiful scenery reminds you of what you have lost. We have our joys as well as our sorrows. And a lot of us can move on with our grief, and then at times the grief comes back as a spore, and then you go on carrying on with your dance or laughter or joke. But what suggestions do you have for people who are of that opinion that talking about it and bringing out, I know from the science of psychology, it's good to deal with it, face it, and then find solutions for it. But for people who are not familiar with this concept, what is the best thing that for us who are untrained in this field to help with our family members? Or
yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's not an uncommon case. I have people who get referred to me. They might even attend for a first appointment, but it's quite clear from the outset that perhaps either they may not be ready to be talking about their grief or their trauma. They just don't feel safe, or they don't feel like they have the capacity to be able to address the feelings that they've essentially been, suppressing or repressing at times. I think it's important to really meet each person where they are, and I think it's important from the outset that whatever they do decide to do, that it's coming from them, and it is acceptable to them. In terms of, again, all you can do with reducing the stigma of seeing a counsellor or a psychiatrist if needed, is to really talk about it, trying to kind of educate and demystify the process, but also that for some people, perhaps we just need to actually learn to respect their limits. Maybe for them there might be some other more creative and maybe non-verbal ways of them dealing with their pain and their sorrow. So, for instance, with children, and specifically traumatised refugee children, play therapies, sound therapies. There's been a lot of research and innovative work done in terms of actually how play therapy can be used for children to actually be able to process their pain, and of course art therapy, or music therapy is another one, or working with the body. So again, for someone who really is reluctant to directly look at and revisit the old traumas or the grief, it may be more about doing it in a more creative outlet, or really just looking at their life goals. So again, more about their reintegration into the current life, and what's missing and what they would like to set goals for themselves. But there has to be buy-in. Otherwise, it's impossible, and there's got to be trust.
There was another question that's come through, which is what David touched on in terms of the community and the spiritual side of grieving. Whether David wants to elaborate in terms of how your spiritual beliefs and community specifically help through that, and also whether, Mojdeh, if there's any research, the scientific side in terms of our the spiritual side of things and community in assisting us through the grief process.
Shout out to my good friend Navid, who's tirelessly doing the AV. Thank you, Navid. I don't think the mic's high enough for his satisfaction. Are we good?
Yeah.
It's good? Fantastic. That gave me time to think about that answer. I mean, spiritually, I've reflected on this a few times during the journey with Emma's treatment, and certainly in the last 12 months or so, since March 25. As a Baha'i, and I sort of when I reflect, I sort of I've been a Baha'i sort of, I'm coming up to 15, 16 years, I think it might be now, since sort of 2010, and I sort of look at it in the sense that it's what you're training for your whole life in terms of grief, like the writings that I've read and the conversations that you have, and as I mentioned in my talk about death not being something to fear and being something to be saddened by, and it was never more evident through Emma's journey, from the point the way that Emma approached it with such, in terms of her, I guess, predicament with the illness, like with such detachment really early. Like it was, I remember we had a conversation where I said, this can go one of two ways. Either I'm going to fight this and get better and or at the same time it's going to go the other way where there's no sort of turning back. But as I mentioned, sort of in those times, my faith and beliefs that these things need to happen. That we sort of God's wisdom and not questioning that spiritually, but then trying to reconcile it with the physical and the reality of, well, okay, the physical loss is going to be difficult to deal with, but I find every time I'm saddened by the physical, it's like there's this thought, like this spiritual sort of comfort that comes and say not to be, I guess, saddened for too long, and to know that, you know, these things need to happen, or have happened and need to happen for that reasons beyond my comprehension. So I think that maybe answers the, yep, thank you.
I mean, from my point of view, I always I always inquire about each person's specific spiritual beliefs. If they have some, it can be very encouraging, and I really would invite them to find comfort and peace in their religious or spiritual beliefs. And for most religions, there are specific ideas about what happens in the afterlife, or whether it's about reincarnation or whatever it is. So, and that could be quite a protective factor, and a real sense of comfort for a lot of people grieving and for their pain. However, at the same time, there's always going to be people who don't have any specific religious affiliations, and again, that's where I normally just try and get them to more openly think about the meaning of life more broadly in an existential sense, in a way. So if our bones and our flesh does disintegrate, which we know scientifically it does, what's left of us? What does that mean? And of course, we're all going to die. You know, there are these kind of existential givens of life that all of us have to negotiate and find answers for. And each person then often goes and thinks about it and comes back, and they may have their own theories about it. I know, for instance, some of my patients have found the idea that, well, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So they like to believe that there is an energy of their loved one that they can still connect to, which again, you know, shares some of these themes. So I think it's very individual and unique, and it definitely is it provides a sense of joy and relief and peace for people to think beyond death, and whatever way we can encourage people to explore that, that's in a way that's acceptable to them, is the best way to do it.
Thank you. We'll have time for one more question, if anyone has a question they would like to ask.
Thank you. My question is for David, and I just want to acknowledge your courage as well in coming along today and sharing your journey. My question is, as a parent of 2 young children who at the time is processing your own grief as well as trying to coach your own children in processing what has happened, I just wonder what that experience was like for you.
Thank you, Gina, for the question. Yeah, it's been an interesting one. I was telling a couple of friends before we started today's forum, like when Emma passed, it wasn't for about 10 days or so before we told our oldest son Levi. He was 5 and a bit at the time, and that 10 or so days was really consulting with family, trying to get, you know, advice on how do you tell a 5, almost 6-year-old, you know, that mummy's not here anymore. He did have the realization, many hospital visits, after school, weekends, etc. Knew that mummy wasn't well. Sort of had that basic comprehension. For Eli, our youngest, he was barely 12 months old, or I forget the maths now, but he was 16 months, I think it was. So it kind of, in a way, made it easier. It's like there's no real too much time dwelling on how to tell, because what we'll do is we'll just fill his life with memories of Emma, you know, as he grows and understands. And actually, I mean, short sort of side thing here that just came to mind, when Emma was being treated and Eli, our youngest was in the hospital, we'd always sort of say, you know, oh, because he was starting to talk, and we're like, oh, say mama, say something, you know, just to give Emma that, and he would always look at Emma and just smile, and not say it. It wouldn't say mum or anything. But you get the booklets done for the memorial for the funeral service, and it has a picture of Emma, like one of those ones that were on there. And amazing, it's on the piano in our house. And one day he just randomly just walked up. Actually, he's not beyond waddling. Walked up and just looked, and he said, "Hi, Mama." And I went, that's, how do you sort of, so he always kind of probably knew how to say it. He just was, having a laugh with Emma. So, but in terms of how we, told Levi, we had to be very, specific and use the right language. We had to say, Mum died, couldn't, I know I've been saying passed a bit, but, sort of that sort of thing, but we had to say Mum died, she's, not physically here anymore, but that she's basically sort of everywhere now. If you talk to her, she'll hear you. That the sort of the spiritual side of bringing that, and that belief that Emma's soul is sort of amongst us in that way. So it was something we grappled with as a family for many days after. And even now, as Levi sort of continues to grow and mature and comprehend, he's processing. You can see he's processing it, and his mind's processing it in his own way. And it's I'm not saying it's easy to infuse Emma in the conversation, but it's more possible now than I say it was sort of 12 months ago, and it's becoming more natural now to and especially things like mum would be proud of something you've done in school, or and that what that sort of resonates or how that registers in his mind, I'm not sure, but just to keep reminding him that it is true. So thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, a big thank you to the Baha'i Community of Melville for hosting our panellists today, who were absolutely incredible and amazing. We're going away with our hearts full of love and I think grief as well, and a lot of information to process. If you would like to have more information about upcoming events or the next forum, keep an eye out on the Melville Baha'i Instagram and Facebook pages. Our next forum will be on Sunday, 26th of July, on student and workplace wellbeing. So if your parents that have students that are anxious about anything or studies, or if you are in the workplace and want to get some tips on improving mental health in the workplace, please come along. Thank you again for being part of this important conversation, and please join us for some refreshments.